Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where you can get everything you need to make mom feel special. For breakfast in bed or a surprise brunch, they've got fresh fruits and gorgeous flowers to help celebrate mom. Get started in the Safeway app.
It's starting to feel a lot more like summer, but heads up, if you want to visit Rocky Mountain National Park this season, the timed entry reservation system is coming back. You can reserve a spot as of this morning for entry on Memorial Day weekend or afterwards. It applies to the whole park, and it only costs $2 to reserve through recreation.gov. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel. Coming up, Democrats said they want to make it easier to form a union. So how come they still haven't done it? Then,
we're losing people with a high level of integrity and willpower to get things done.
How the workforce in Colorado is changing from Trump's layoffs. Plus, a court demands that banned books be put back on shelves.
Keep your politics out of the educational environment.
But a conservative district in Colorado doesn't want to listen. And finally, we have new show lineups for big Colorado theaters. It's Thursday, May 1st. Here's the news in Colorado today. This day is International Workers' Day. It harkens all the way back to the 1800s when unions fought for an 8-hour workday. This year, the Democrats in Colorado have been trying to pass a labor law that would make it easier to unionize. But despite the fact that they made it a big priority, introducing it all the way back in January, it is one of the major things still undone with 1 week to go in the legislative session. CPR's Benta Berklin has covered this bill since the beginning. Benta, where did it come from?
It came from the labor wing of the Democratic Party. They've wanted to do this for a long time, but I think momentum's really building right now, and there's even greater support for unions among the broader public. We also have wide Democratic majorities in the state legislature and some high-profile pro-union Democrats there. And they really want to change Colorado's 80-year-old law that says if you want to fully become a unionized shop, you need to hold 2 different elections.
Wow, an 80-year-old law. So what would the reforms do if they do pass?
It would get rid of this second vote required to be fully unionized. Right now, union organizers need 75% of workers on this second vote to succeed. Backers of the bill say, look, that's too high a bar to clear. And it also gives employers a second chance to try to persuade people to vote no.
Okay, and why has the debate over this bill gone on for the entire session? What could happen with it now?
Governor Polis said from the very beginning he doesn't want to upend the current system, and he'll only sign something if labor and business are both on board with it. So far, that hasn't happened. The bill did clear the Senate, not the House yet. The House Majority Leader, Monica Duran, says she's still hoping they can find a compromise the governor would ultimately sign, but says labor and business leaders are not there yet.
CPR's Benta Berklin, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Hundreds of Coloradans are looking for jobs right now, some who just got laid off because their gigs at the federal government have ended.
They said employment was no longer in the public interest, which is kind of a dubious term. Anyone could change what that means.
Corey Schaefer worked with the Department of Energy in Golden.
I'm a chemical engineer.
He worked on energy efficiency and renewables. He's one of several federal workers, or former ones, who spoke with CPR's Sarah Mulholland as she got a sense of the scale of the change for federal staff and their families over these first 100 days of the Trump administration. Sarah, this isn't just about those employees either. It's getting harder to get a job in Colorado overall. So will these federal workforce cuts make that harder?
Absolutely. So, as you noted, Colorado's job market has been slowing for a while now, and dumping hundreds or thousands of employees from the federal government like Corey Schaefer certainly isn't going to help.
Let's focus a little bit on his story. Tell me more about it.
So he worked on technologies to convert hydrogen to electricity, to make it work better and cheaper. He says the federal government has been uniquely positioned to make investments in something like this.
I think what gets lost is how important I think they are to driving technology forward in a way that is more controlled than just letting industry kind of do whatever and hope for the best.
So, for example, he sees how the U.S. has not been able to keep up with other countries in producing electric car batteries.
I worry that hydrogen technology might go that way if we don't keep promoting it.
He'd been working as a contractor for the federal government for a while and then got promoted into a role at the federal agency last year as a full-time employee.
But he doesn't work there anymore, right?
Right. So he was briefly laid off since he was a newer full-time employee. And then a judge ruled that employees like him had to be rehired. So that happened, and he briefly went back to work. But he decided to take the second massive buyout offer from Elon Musk's people. So now he's supposed to get paid through September, but he will not actually be working for the federal government during that time. They're calling this deferred resignation.
I think there's both a high level of technical expertise that's leaving, not all of it, but a lot of it. And this is like, these are people with many years of experience, and even combined, we're losing people with a high level of integrity and willpower to get things done.
Do we know how many people have actually been affected?
Arlo, we really don't. I can tell you that about 750 federal workers have filed for unemployment in Colorado since Trump took office. But those numbers are really incomplete. So take Corey Schaefer, for example. He wasn't eligible for unemployment when he was first laid off because he hadn't been in the job long enough. And then for people that have been laid off, but they're still getting severance, they're not eligible for unemployment yet either. So it's just not the full picture. And I've also met people determined to stick around, but who realize that they might get laid off anyway.
Why would someone stick around for that?
Well, because they believe in the mission of the work they do. For example, I spoke with an employee of the Environmental Protection Agency. She doesn't want to be named since she's staying in her job. But layoff notices started going out last week to people in her agency. The Environmental Justice Division, which works on things like reducing pollution in poor and rural communities, was gutted in Colorado and across the U.S. But this employee thinks the work that the EPA does is really important, and so she wants to try to stick around.
So taking a step back, you've been talking to federal employees for 3 months now, hearing their stories as they've dealt with a lot of surprising turns. When you look at the bigger picture, what should people know about the scope of these layoffs and buyouts and the agencies that they affect?
The federal government plays a huge role in the lives of everyday people, even if we're not always thinking about it. So protecting our bank deposits, making sure the food that we eat is safe, all of that is the federal government. So the EPA employee who I mentioned, the one who's trying to stick it out through layoffs, she told me she doesn't think people realize that federal employees do things like protect air quality, and their work goes way beyond just sending out Social Security checks. And it's important to note that these aren't surgical targeted cuts. It seems to be that the point of these cuts is just to get rid of federal workers.
Sarah, thank you so much.
Thanks.
In the case of a book ban in the conservative school district of Elizabeth, Colorado, a federal judge is siding with those who want the titles back on the shelf. The district of about 2,300 students is on the plains between Denver and Colorado Springs. CPR's Haley May is covering this. Haley, can you take us back to the beginning of this dispute?
Yeah, our colleague Jenny Brundine reported that during the pandemic, school board politics in Elizabeth started revolving around lessons that included LGBTQ identity and racial dynamics. Then, in August of last year, the school district suspended 19 book titles, and it voted to get rid of many libraries and classrooms. Months later is when this legal battle all started. The ACLU in December sued the district in federal court over the book ban, and the plaintiffs included 2 students and a chapter of the NAACP. They argued that the bans were a violation of free speech protections at both the state and the federal level.
19 books. What kind of books are we talking about?
Well, they included titles that you've likely heard of. The Kite Runner is one of them, The Perks of Being a Wallflower is another, and Beloved by Toni Morrison. Throughout the battle, Dan Snowberger, who's the superintendent of schools at the district, said books were removed for inappropriate content.
And then bring us up to speed. What happened in the legal fight thus far?
Well, a federal judge has now twice ordered the school district to put the books back on the shelf. The district tried again to fight those orders, which led to this week's ruling again in favor of the ACLU. I spoke with the group's legal director, Tim McDonald.
We're very pleased that the court essentially saw it our way, and now the district court's order to put the books back on the shelves and to keep the board's political views out of the book business is now in effect.
That's the order, but will they actually put the books back?
Kind of remains to be seen. Wheeler Trigg O'Donnell, a law firm that was working with the ACLU, did donate the books after learning that they'd been discarded by the district. But at last check, they had rejected that gift, and the court really never gave them a time frame in which they needed to get it done. McDonald at the ACLU, however, does think that the ruling will have a wider impact across the country.
We've seen an increased desire of governments and school boards to engage in book banning, and we hope that this case will show them stop banning books, let the kids choose what they want to read, and keep your politics out of that aspect of the educational environment.
We did reach out to the school district for comment on this latest legal update and to learn its plan for returning the books, but we didn't hear back. It's also unclear what other legal steps the district might take next to fight this decision, but the ACLU tells us that the saga is likely not over.
CPR's Haley May. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on from what's on the bookshelf to what's on stage. 2 of the state's biggest theater companies just put up new lineups, from ABBA music to brand new plays and theater standards. Here's more of what you can see on stage in Denver and Colorado Springs. The Denver Center's lineup, that starts in September, includes premieres that came out of the Colorado New Play Summit. One of those is called Godspeed, described as a revisionist Western set in 1865. It's named for the central character, who playwright Terrence Anthony says is a woman who had been enslaved.
Who escaped to Mexico 10 years earlier. And now that she's a free person, she's returned to Texas with a gun, with 1 bullet, and vengeance on her mind.
The new season for the Denver Center also includes some annual staples, like A Christmas Carol, as well as classics like Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Here's the theater company's artistic director, Chris Coleman.
When I think about this group of stories, what comes to mind for me are big humans, unafraid of big feelings, intense pursuit of what is most meaningful for them.
The Pikes Peak Center in Colorado Springs dropped its season announcement as well. It's stacked with Broadway musicals, and the one that immediately jumped out at me was Mamma Mia. The show is built entirely out of ABBA's catalog. ABBA music. It is the sound of my youth. Then again, the versions that I heard were a little different. Mamma mia, una y otra vez, no sé cómo resistirte. Ow! I need to go to karaoke. And those are just a few of the suggestions in CPR's weekly art spotlight, highlighting cultural happenings around the state. CPR's Lauren Antonoff-Hart writes the Colorado Art Spotlight. Find our full list in our show notes. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. And if you want to join me at the karaoke bar to sing ABBA, would you start by telling a few friends about the show? You can call it your cover charge. Additional reporting for today's show came from CPR's Jenny Brundin. Don't forget to follow Colorado Today in your podcast app. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where teachers can save 5% every day. Download the Safeway app and verify your teacher status for exclusive offers and discounts. Get started at Safeway.com or in the Safeway app.